So why recovery? What's that all about? Well, recovery is so important after an illness, an operation or medical treatment. In years gone by, before things like keyhole surgery, there used to be long periods of convalescence after an operation or major illness. People would be sent away to the countryside, to a convalescent home to be nursed until they had recovered. We know that recovery is needed after a traumatic event such as a bereavement, and most organisations are geared up for employees to have compassionate leave in such circumstances. And recovery is necessary after certain challenges in life or physical exertion. We hear complaints from professional football managers over the recovery time needed between matches and when matches are put too close together. I know we've got some very proficient runners in the congregation, and there was a time I trained to run for a half marathon, and I was made aware very quickly that the recovery days in between were just as important, in fact if not more so, than the training days as I prepared for that long distance run. Well, recovery takes time. Recovery often takes more time than we expect. And this year we've been through more challenges than ever before. So we need to take time to recover as well. And good recovery requires a process of engaging with our emotions, integrating our losses, embracing the new reality. As I said earlier, healthy recovery includes remembering, reflecting, and recuperating. Well, in our reading today, it said that there's a time for everything. And I believe that now is the time for recovery. We've gone through the initial response to the crisis. We've adapted to the changed world. We've gone through a period of reorientation. We may need to reimagine and reshape the way we do church. And there's a group from PCC working on that. But it's important to spend time recovering well before we rush into renewal. There are wounds to heal. There's damage, both emotional and spiritual, that needs to be repaired first. So, what in the reading caught your attention? Though they were written many thousands of years ago, the author offers some things that can aid us in our recovery now. Which things do you think are appropriate for today? Maybe take the opportunity to pause the video, to switch off and think. If someone else is in the house with you, maybe you could chat with them. Maybe you've got some ideas. Let's just pause before I share my thoughts. Well, the ones that particularly struck me were a time to plant and a time to uproot, particularly the planting side of that. When we go through such troubled times, we're forced to do things differently. New ideas and priorities are planted. So let's not imagine that we and our church will come out of this unchanged. For example, whatever we think about Zoom, and I know that many of us are zoomed out, there's no doubt that it is a useful tool for holding some meetings, and it's saved a vast amount of travel time. Some changes are taking root, and they're here to stay. And then in verse 3, we're told that there's a time to kill and a time to heal. Some have physical injuries, such as the ongoing effects of long COVID. Others have emotional injuries as a result of bereavement or relationships that have been damaged through lockdown, either because of confinement or separation. Some have spiritual damage as a result of a distancing of their relationship with God, perhaps being neglected by a lack of routine. All these injuries need time to heal. So this is a time for healing. Then we're told that there is a time to tear down and a time to build. Some of our old practices as church needed reshaping, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. Some of the practices we've had to adopt, such as this pre-recorded church services, tend to make us consumers rather than participants in worship. And that also needs to be torn down and rebuilt. Then in verse 4 we're told there's a time to weep, a time to mourn, and we know that for many, weeping and mourning the enormous and tragic loss of life of this pandemic has brought us. It's vital that we go through those phases and help others too as well. Then in verse 5 we're told that there's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A little bit lighter hearted this time. Sadly, we're discouraged still from embracing just anyone. Perhaps we're keeping our hugs specially set aside for family and very close friends and loved ones. But isn't it amazing how much of this ancient writing is pertinent just for today? And then take a look at verse 15, which reads so strangely, "Whatever is has already been, and whatever will be has been before, and God will call the past to account." What this is suggesting is that nothing about the past or the present or the future is out of God's sight. God knows everything we've been through. He knows exactly how things are for us now, both the good and the bad. And he knows what we'll face in the coming weeks and months. He can bring healing for the past as we remember. He can bring comfort in the present as we reflect. All we have to do is acknowledge his presence with us and welcome him into our memories and our reflections. And then he can bring hope for our future as we recover. And he brings the healing that we so desperately need. Well, one of the most famous psalms in the Bible is Psalm 23, which speaks of the Lord who is my shepherd. And one of the ways Jesus describes himself is the good shepherd. The shepherd who knows his flock intimately. He travels with them. He protects them from danger. He leads them to places of safety and refreshment. And of course, we are his flock. He does those things for us. Jesus famously said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That's Matthew 11, verse 28. But listen to that same verse and a couple of others afterwards as they're expressed in the Message translation. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away from me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Isn't that wonderful? Jesus is saying, get away with me. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Learn to live freely and lightly. I have to say I'm challenged by these words. I don't want the way we do church to wear people out, to burn them out on religion. Yes, there are tasks to be done, but can we simplify the operation? And whilst I don't want to wear people out, everyone can contribute to the life of the church family, and together the burdens will be lighter. So don't be surprised if we do a few things differently this summer. Perhaps we need to think smaller, doing more with our small groups, or joining or creating one, doing more outside, doing more fun things together to remind ourselves that we are the family of God. And a group from the PCC are also considering how best we approach the recovery phase together. So remember, we can tell Jesus about everything and anything. He's always there for us. He'll never let us down. Are there ways in which God has helped you during the pandemic? We're going to share them now. Again, if you want to pause the video for a moment, think about how God has helped you through the past year. Finally, we need to recognise that Jesus also said to his friends, "Come, follow me." We don't know what the future holds, but we do know that Jesus invites us to experience his great love and to show it and share it too. I'm so excited that we were successful in a bid for a grant to provide hope in the community beyond the pandemic. It will allow us to increase Emma's hours for a year and establish a few projects to support the most vulnerable in our community. She's already run a couple of support programs for new parents with babies born in lockdown, who've been starved of the usual support structures. Things like antenatal classes and toddler groups haven't been able to run. We know it's such a stressful time as a new parent anyway, without the additional challenges of lockdown. The groups Emma's run have been really well received and oversubscribed in some cases. She's also been extending the Sparklers' reach to Hall Park and running a project initially envisioned by the Salvation Army called Get Out, as in outside. Again, benefiting families with very young children. There are other projects planned and some funding for counselling where that's identified as a need. It'd be great if, as the year progressed, volunteers from within the church supported Emma in supporting those vulnerable families. What a great way to show the love of God and the hope that he brings. So my hope for us all is that we will help one another on the road to recovery. I could speak at length of the wonderful love and care shown by the church family through our own bereavement. Let's take the time to do the healing, the reconnecting that we need to do so that we can emerge healthy and hopeful as we come out of lockdown. If our spiritual health has suffered, let's spur one another on to praise and worship and serve the Lord. If our relational health has suffered, let's encourage one another and do some fun things together and remind ourselves what a great family the church is. If our emotional health has suffered, let's be kind and gentle with one another, providing love and compassionate support. If our physical health has suffered, let's share our needs and commit to praying for one another, praying for the Spirit's healing touch. And together, let's follow Jesus, seeking his guidance and being obedient to his call on our lives and the life of the church. Amen.